The dawn of the 20th century ushers in a period of political violence unprecedented in the history of modern China. This is the age of uprising, insurrection, bombing, and assassination. The question is this the bloody dawn of a new era? November the 9th, 1944. American bombers attacked the Japanese city of Nagoya. In an air raid shelter outside Nagoya University Hospital, an old man in the grip of delirium is clinging to the last moments of life. After a failed assassination attempt 9 years earlier, doctors never managed to remove the bullet that became lodged in his body. After all those years, it's now corroded and black. As the life force ebbs from his body and his delirium increases, the boundary between reality and fantasy blurs. 34 years earlier, he was ready for death, eager to embrace it with pride. If only time could have frozen in the spring of 1910. It's 1910, and at the Shoujian photographic studio just outside Xuanzhi Gate in Beijing, business is booming. The business is owned and operated by two young men who've just returned home from Japan. But not all is as it seems. By night, the air of their dark rooms, like those of any photographic studio, are thick with the smell of chemicals. But these chemicals are not the ones they need to develop their photographic plates. These two seemingly innocent photographers are in fact elite members of the Chinese Revolutionary League. They are Wang Fusheng and Yu Peilun. In time, Yu Peilun will achieve fame not for the flashes of his camera, but for his bombs. For the time being, they're giving their bomb-making talents a rest. They're biding their time. Suddenly, footsteps break the nighttime silence. Out of the darkness, a couple steps up to the Shoujian photographic studio and knocks on the door. Wang Fusheng and Yu Peilun are overjoyed to see them. The visitors are Wang Jingwei and Chen Bijun. Wang and Yu have been waiting for them a long time. By 1910, the effects of many of the reforms championed by the Qing dynasty reformers were beginning to make themselves felt. For some, it began to feel as if the dynasty was actually getting to grips with the root causes of discontent with Qing dynasty rule. There was a lull in revolutionary activism. The waning of revolutionary enthusiasm, coupled with the disastrous outcome of the 6 uprisings sponsored by Sun Yat-sen's Chinese Revolutionary League, left the few remaining professional revolutionaries dejected and demoralized.
大家觉得，第一，孙中山革命的这个起义呢，不断的失败，悲观情绪蔓延。那么第二呢， 当时内部的这个里面呢，也出现了这个不团结的局面，所以当时有人就讲孙中山是不是空头革命家，是吧？就是很多不切实际的一些想法。那么当然里面呢，我们讲汪精卫呢，他是比较笃信孙中山的三民主义的，所以他呢，虽然自己也感到非常的悲观，对革命的前途也充满了忧虑，但是呢，他还是拥护孙中山，所以他决心呢潜回国内，到北京呢做一件惊天动地的大事，来提振革命党人的士气。
Wang Jingwei knew that more than his own life was at stake, the revolution could ill afford to lose a senior figure like him. But Wang Jingwei had made up his mind. As he put it in a letter to my comrades in Southeast Asia, I am finished, whether I succeed or not. But if I do, at least I can comfort myself with the knowledge that my eyes will gaze upon the march of a glorious revolutionary army through the capital, when it's lopped off and tossed on a pile of cabbage leaves in Taishikou execution ground. The die was cast. Wang Jingwei and 6 others, including Yu Peilun and Huang Fusheng, became the core of an elite squad of assassins that intended to strike at the very heart of the Qing Empire. But first, they needed a front, and so it was that an innocuous photographic studio became the secret headquarters from which this band of revolutionaries plotted the demise of key Qing dignitaries. One day, the blacksmith on Beijing's Luoma Shi Street is called from his work clerk from a nearby photographic studio. He has an order for him. The blacksmith is naturally pleased to get whatever business he can, but he's slightly puzzled by the drawing handed to him by the boy. He's made buckets before, but never one as big as this. It's almost 3 times the size of a normal one. When the clerk explains that it's for storing photographic film, whatever that is, he shrugs his shoulders, gets back to his work, and promises to send it round to Shoujian Photographic Studio the moment it's finished. At first, Wang Jingwei had no particular target in mind. For him, the most important consideration definite target in mind, they get to work planning the assassination. Intelligence gathered by the squad's reconnaissance expert Huang Fusheng is key to their plan. Zaifeng, Huang discovers, passes through Gulou Street every day on his way to meetings of the imperial court. This makes him extremely vulnerable to ambush. What's more, along Zaifeng's route to court, there's a section of low wall, the ideal hiding place for the assassins. Unfortunately for the assassins, however, Zaifeng changes his route because of roadworks, and the plan to assassinate him on Gulou has to be called off. Nevertheless, it quickly emerges that Zaifeng's new route to court takes him through Yandai Xijie. Perhaps this offers them a chance. However, further reconnaissance reveals that the lane is too narrow. It doesn't offer them any place to hide. Finally, Ganshui Bridge by Shichahai is chosen. Surrounded with lush trees, it provides perfect cover for the assassins. Meanwhile, over in the blacksmith shop, the big iron bucket is almost finished. Little does the blacksmith realize that there is one reason, and one reason alone, why the bucket needs to be so big. It can hold 50 pounds of high explosive that will rock the Qing dynasty to its very foundations. On the night of March the 31st, 1910, while the whole capital sleeps, Wang Jingwei, Yu Peilun and Huang Fusheng finally put their plan into action. Under the cover of darkness, they carry the immense canister to Ganshui Bridge and start digging. But when they hear the sound of dogs barking nearby, they call off the mission. Late the following night, the assassination plot is back on. The three men dig a deep hole underneath Ganshui Bridge and bury the canister of explosives. Once the bomb is in its hole, King of Bombers Yu Peilun gets to work attaching a detonator to the bomb. It will be operated remotely by means of a wire. Unfortunately, he's underestimated just how much wire is needed to reach the woods where they plan to lie in wait for Zaifeng. As a result, the mission is off for a second time. The following night, they make a third attempt, and this time they remember to bring enough wire. But once again, their plans do not go smoothly. When Huang Fusheng and Yu Peilun go to the bridge, they notice a figure moving on the bridge. Afraid that the mission has been exposed, Huang Fusheng tells Yu Peilun to run back to the studio and warn Wang Jingwei not to come. Meanwhile, Huang Fusheng gathers up the wire and the tools, but there's no way he can remove the gigantic iron bucket on his own. The footsteps get closer, and the unmistakable figure of a military policeman emerges from the dark. The assassination plot has been exposed. It turns out that an insomniac rickshaw puller looking for his errant wife has noticed something unusual going on under the bridge, and he's reported his observation to the authorities. Later, when the Qing authorities seize the container and take it in for further investigation, they are stunned by it, as are the foreign experts they show it to. One Japanese explosives expert reckons that a bomb this size would be big enough to flatten everything within a radius of 240 meters from the explosion. The Qing authorities are determined to hold the plotters to account, and whoever aided and abetted them. Had the plot succeeded, the wielder of supreme political power in the empire would have been blown to smithereens. At first, they assumed that a bomb of this sophistication must have been imported from abroad. But closer inspection reveals that the container bears all the hallmarks of the work of a local blacksmith. At first, the conspirators assume that there's nothing to connect them with the bomb, so they start to relax. But unbeknownst to them, the Qing authorities are on their trail. Foolishly, the complacent revolutionaries stay put in Beijing and even make plans for further assassinations. But first, they need to replace the explosive captured by the Qing authorities. So Yu Peilun and Chen Bijuan are tasked with going to Japan and Southeast Asia to buy explosives, while Wang and Huang stay on in the capital. On the morning of April the 6th, the Qing authorities finally succeed in tracing the bucket back to the smithy where it was made. And under interrogation, the blacksmith reveals that the bucket was commissioned by the Shoujian photographic studio. He shows them the drawing and denies all knowledge of the purpose of the bucket and the assassination plot. The authorities immediately descend on the studio and arrest Wang Jingwei and Huang Fusheng. The future looks grim for the pair of them. The Qing dynasty statute books know only one punishment for treason: death. Under interrogation, each man claims to be the ringleader of the plot, hoping to take all as accomplice. While in prison, Wang Jingwei devotes himself to writing poetry and a 3,000-word political testament based on the three principles of the people. Word of Wang's spirited conduct in the condemned cell leaks out. Poems like, "I will sing my songs on the execution ground," "I can stand being a prisoner," and "I look forward to losing my head," are soon known and recited up and down the country. It's said that even Prince Su, the man responsible for Wang Jingwei's trial and condemnation, would sigh at the prospect of putting him to death, bemoaning that a talent so outstanding should be put to such regrettable use. Indeed, so impressed is Prince Su with Wang Jingwei that he visits the 27-year-old assassin and revolutionary every day.
因为汪精卫一表人才，长相非常英俊啊，那个不仅仅是他的外表非常的，就说是与众不同啊，他的气质、风度，包括他的才华、学养啊，都给这个肃亲王善耆留下非常深刻的印象。那也引发了这个肃亲王善耆的这种爱才之心。
黄复生的审判呀，确实是民众是一个瞩目的焦点。就是京城轰动，包括全国都非常有影响的一个事件。那么这个事件呢，一方面呢是说明了清政府包括肃亲王呀，他能够礼贤下士也好，包括能够结交和他政治利益截然不同的或者尖锐对立的这个汪精卫，这是反映了清政府的一个比较好的一个。
Accordingly, the Qing imperial authorities shied away from imposing the death sentence. Instead, Wang Jingwei and Huang Fusheng were sentenced to life imprisonment, the first time since the Qing dynasty law code came into force that a conspirator had escaped the death penalty. As the news that Wang Jingwei has been arrested in Beijing for trying to assassinate Zaifeng spread across the country, many people began to reassess Sun Yat-sen and the Chinese Revolutionary League. The idea that they were armchair revolutionaries incapable of real political action began to look absurd. The Wuchang Uprising broke out as Wang was beginning his second year in prison. To win the support of the people, the Qing pardoned and released many prisoners convicted of politically motivated crimes, including Wang Jingwei. It's said that on the day he was released from prison, the whole city came onto the streets to gaze upon the face of the handsome young man they had heard so much about. For a while, Wang Jingwei was a legend. But sometimes, the progress of history is rather strange. All of a sudden, his revolutionary outlook changed. In 1935, Wang Jingwei was the head of the executive yuan of the national government. At that time, he advocated a policy of compromise with Japan. The result was that the would-be patriotic assassin of 1910 was shot 3 times by a latter-day assassin called Sun Fengming, who had the same patriotic motivations. The setbacks experienced by China in the early years of the war turned Wang Jingwei defeatist. He began to advocate passive resistance in the face of Japanese aggression. A martyrdom complex had always lurked deep in Wang Jingwei's heart. During the War of Resistance, he said, "If someone has to go to hell, let me do it." This time, he chose his own hell. With the help of the Japanese, he set up a regime of his own where he could put his ideas expressed in his peaceful national salvation campaign into practice. In 1940 in Nanjing, he signed the Sino-Japanese Treaty of Basic Relations with Japan. It's said that after he signed the treaty, he looked up at the cloud hanging over Purple Mountain, tears slowly rolling down his face. Maybe the realization that he was the pawn of the Japanese had just dawned on him. On that same day, the Chongqing nationalist government issued a warrant for Wang's arrest for treason. Wang's puppet regime struggled on for only 5 years. As for Wang Jingwei's reputation, that evaporated overnight. As one statesman of the time, Wu Zhihui, ruefully reflected, he was an outstanding man. Why did he, of all people, turn traitor? In March 1944, the old gunshot wound causing him more and more trouble, Wang Jingwei goes to Japan for medical treatment. By that time, it's clear that Japan is losing the Pacific War to the Americans. As the bombers drone overhead and the bombs explode, that his peaceful national salvation campaign has reached a dead end, as has his life. On November the 10th, Wang Jingwei dies in the city of Nagoya, uttering with his final breath, "I want to go back to China." Less than a year later, China triumphed over the Japanese. In January 1912, the paths of 2 young men cross.
我是军人，死不足惜。遗憾的是，我今死去，大清必亡。共和成，虽死亦荣；共和不成，虽生亦辱。朝廷不是我，唯此人是我。